Hey all, so I was successful in importing a vehicle from Canada. This is it. It's a van truck. So it has the comforts of a van with the utility of a pickup. I'm going to use this primarily as like a cross-country towing vehicle. Throughout the process of getting my plates, I already did a bunch of upgrades to it. Airbags. I got a nice 10-inch display here with basically an infotainment system with Apple CarPlay and stuff. I'm planning on doing a bunch of gauges next that should have came with this thing from the factory. I'm going to put some nice video gauges inside here, integrate it nice and neat. But anyway, I tried using transport companies to get it here, but with the pandemic and everything, all that was a mess. I heard that a lot of those transport companies are a mess anyway. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and show you the process of what I did to get this thing titled and plated and everything here in the US, and what went through this whole ordeal. It's a little long-winded, I tend to do that, but I'm hoping that some of the info I have out there will help you out if you're going to try to import something that's 25 years or older on your own. Thanks for watching. Hey all, so here I am at the DMV. Hopefully I have all of my paperwork on importing this truck all ready to go. Took a number, of course, like any DMV is like a 45-minute wait, but I'm just out here on my car, and while I'm waiting, I'm going to share what I did and how I was able to import this vehicle all on my own. So I'll show you the paperwork here. So first piece of paperwork we have here is this is the registration for Canada. And registration in Canada is essentially your title. It's not like the US where you have a separate document for a title. This is it. So the front needs to be signed and everything by the owner. Obviously, it needs to match your vehicle's information. And then the back, where it's being transferred, I signed my name, and the owner needed to sign, or seller needed to sign their name, and some of the other information here. Now, the first time I went to the DMV when I came back to Colorado, they said I needed to fill out what they call a statement of fact. Since all of this is in French, they wanted me to translate from French to English. So they gave me the paperwork to handwrite it. I didn't want to do that. It's a DR2444 is what it is. I just downloaded this online, and then I just opened an Acrobat reader and I filled it out manually. So, this side's all French. That's everything right here in the title, all in French. And this side here is a translation to English. So, the reason I'm back here to do all this is because the first time I was in, I had just about everything except this. And of course, they couldn't process it because of something like this. So just make sure you have that and it's signed and everything. The next piece of paper is what they call a VIN verification. In Colorado, they love these things. Like if you come into the DMV without it, they'll ship you right back out. You waited in line for hours for nothing. So VIN verification is important. Well, it's really not important. It's BS, but it's important to bring in with you. So this is the VIN verification. This right here was not checked when they did the VIN verification for me at this dealership, and they sent me back because of that. It's just outrageous. If they do that to you, if they hand the paperwork back and say it's not filled out correctly, this isn't filled out, or anything's not filled out correctly, requires a check mark or X or whatever, just put the check mark in it and give it right back to them. There should be no reason why they can't take it back. But because I had to do the translation, I went ahead and I just went to the dealer and had them go ahead and check it. Of course, they made it look different, so hopefully it's not a problem. But you need this too. So VIN verification's done. And then this is essentially a bill of sale, like a form of it. I found this foreign shipper's declaration online. So I went ahead and filled this out just to be on the safe side. And this piece here this is an important piece you need for importing a vehicle from Canada, CBP Form 7501. Again, I downloaded this online, and I filled it out to the best of my ability. This right here I filled out wrong, but the people at the U.S. border said, hey, this is wrong. What I filled out here is for duty fees. They said since this vehicle was originally built in the U.S. and is being imported back into the U.S., I don't have to pay taxes on it. So that's awesome. So they changed that for me and stamped it anyway. But, you know, since I filled that in wrong, we should have filled this out brand new from the get-go, but they just let it go, which is awesome. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you is I put a lot of thought into the border stuff when picking up my truck. I picked it up in Quebec, Canada, and drove it all the way down, you know, Massachusetts area, you know, eastern United States area, all the way back home to Colorado. I drove it everywhere. Drove it 3,400 miles before I got it home. And to get it across the border to the U.S., I actually did a Google review search on the best ratings I could find on a border, you know, into the U.S. Because sometimes people have a really difficult time at the border, and other times people have a really easy time. So I figure, hey, it might be in the reviews. And sure enough, it was. I found about probably 15 to 20 minutes out of the border that maps showed me to go through, there was another border that I could hit that had all 5 stars. People just raved about the border patrol of this place. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, after I picked the truck up, I drove down to that, you know, to that border, which was out of the way. It was really weird, that area. I had to go down. I was on, you know, a normal roadway, and then I had to veer off that roadway and drive 15 minutes down a dirt trail through the mountains, through woods and everything. It was crazy. Like doing this at 3 in the morning, hit another main road, and then got down to the border patrol. When I got there, they're like, what are you doing here? They were all surprised. There was like 2 people working there. And they looked at the, you know, I told them everything. You know, I was like, hey, I came down here because supposedly online you guys are awesome, you know, and I really want to make sure that, you know, I run into, you know, good people when I, you know, go across the border here because I'm importing a vehicle. You know, I just didn't want to go into some hub that's, not hub, but a border patrol that's a mess, you know, it has a lot going on. They're like, oh, okay. They said they've never processed a vehicle through that border before. It's crazy. So, you know, they were on the phone with people that knew what they were doing while they were trying to process my paperwork and things like that. They just showed you where I filled in the wrong information. They found, oh, you know, since they're nice and they don't have anything better to do at that location, they went ahead and filled out the paperwork anyway. They allowed it to pass where I don't think any other border would have. They even caught that I wasn't supposed to pay taxes. And I was fully prepared to pay taxes, but they caught I wasn't supposed to pay taxes on it and the people they were talking to on the phone. So I got away without paying taxes on it, you know, which is good. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. But I tell you, do a little bit of research before you leave on what border you're going to hit. And Google reviews are amazing when it comes to finding the right border patrol to make your life easy on importing something like this. This is my first time. You know, when I got there, I was super nice to them. I told them, hey, it's the first time I've ever done this. I hope I got all the paperwork right. You know, they were super nice back to me, and it worked out. I made it through the border that night, probably within 30 minutes. And when they came back to my vehicle after they stamped all my paperwork, they were like, is there anything else that we need to stamp? I'm like, well, this paperwork here, from what I hear at the DMV, sometimes they want this stuff stamped. So he just had to stamp with him, and he just stamped everything. So, again, going through an area that's not busy, that has really good reviews, really paid off for me. You know, coming back from Quebec, Canada, it really worked out well. So, now this is the, what they call an entry summary. So, 7501. Again, I think I would have probably had to fill this out from scratch again with the right information here if I went to any other border. But since this one was kind of off the beaten path a bit, they went ahead and stamped it for me anyway. So that's awesome. More stuff. This stuff here, they originally, I think it's either this one or the other one, they didn't stamp. And I think the DMV here in Colorado gets a little picky about that. So they just stamped it. So EPA stuff. You know, all this stuff here, you know, I did all the research online on what I needed to check. what box I needed to check, what I needed to fill out. It was all pretty straightforward, but they stamped. I don't think they even needed to stamp this one, but they did anyway. This is called a declaration. This is what's called a HS7. Again, I downloaded this online. They filled out the top here. I had the bottom filled out for them. So I think the key to a lot of this that made it easy at that location was I really did my homework on filling everything out, typed it out nice and neat and everything to make it as easy as possible for them. So here's the actual bill of sale. This is the one that matters here at the DMV in the US. This one has all of his information. What I forgot to put in my bill of sale is under penalty of perjury. I don't know if it's like that at all DMVs in the US, but definitely in Colorado, you have to have that in there. They let me write it in the last time I was here. They said that's good enough. But just remember that in your bill of sale, it has to be under penalty of perjury, needs to be in it. And of course, both people need to sign it. It's a copy of his registration, title, stuff. And another kind of slick thing I did was the DMV in Colorado, they're so useless. What they ended up doing was you can't get temp tags, plates, nothing here in Colorado without bringing the original title to them and processing that title first. It's so stupid. So since I was importing this vehicle, they have to fly in to grab everything and get all the paperwork filled out. There's really no easy way for me to get a temp tag on this. And I talked repeatedly to them over the phone about getting a temp tag. I couldn't get it. So what I found is Texas has what they call a 144-hour permit. If you get on the Texas DMV website or type in 144-hour permit in Texas, you can buy, it's kind of expensive. It's like 2 or 3 times as much as it is a regular permit in Colorado, but you get it online. You print it out and boom, you're done. Here it is right here. So I went ahead and printed it out. I wrapped it in tape, clear tape, to make it as waterproof as possible. And I put that on the truck. It's, since I'm not a resident of Texas, it's kind of a hole on this. There's like a disclaimer at the bottom of this I cut out, basically saying that it's only good in Texas and stuff. It's better than riding with no plates at all, riding dirty. I had this on there, and it actually worked out pretty good. And I kept this receipt with me too in case I got stopped. And, it's better than riding with no plates at all because I had no choice. So I went ahead and did that, and that worked out. The rest of this is just extra paperwork I brought with me just in case, to make sure I had all my ducks in a row in case, I got stopped or the Border Patrol was picky about something or something. So another thing too is I went down and picked this truck up during the whole COVID crisis. One thing I'm going to tell you is if you're flying anywhere out of the country, or like to Canada, because I flew into Quebec, Canada, and then drove the vehicle back. I basically drove it cross country all over the place and then drove it back home. One thing I'll tell you is when flying international like that, do everything you possibly can to make sure everything is filled out that you need done. I downloaded a huge number of apps on my phone for not only US, border stuff, but Canada. And if any flight you take into Canada, like Canada Air, they send you multiple emails reminding you, hey, you need to fill this stuff in for the Border Patrol for Canada. Download this app or, fill this stuff online or whatever. And I did everything I possibly could. I even searched online anything additional I can do to make sure I had everything ready to go before I left. Any apps that I needed, any paperwork that I could fill out online for, to get everything straightened out as far as I could before even getting to the airport. And I got to tell you, I did all of that. I spent days to make sure I had everything filled out the way it should be. And I was the only person in my flight when I got to Canada that wasn't frustrated, that didn't have to wait in a line for an hour or two, and didn't really have to talk to anybody. Honestly, it felt like I was like some diplomat or something that flew into Canada. Like I showed the Border Patrol my paperwork. They're like, oh, you already filled all this stuff out online. Everything looks good. Just walk past all these people. You don't have to wait in any of these lines. Go all the way to the end. You're good to go. It's crazy. I didn't have to do anything. It's nuts. I did have to declare a couple things or whatever, but that only took like 5 minutes, and that was it. And I gotta tell you, when I was walking past all those people in line, there were people there that were pissed, because they did not read when they got the information that they needed to fill out to know what they needed to do to prevent that from happening. So if you don't read the paperwork that the airlines and the Canada Border Patrol, all those people send you, and take care of that before you leave, you're going to be standing there for hours. And it was the same with my COVID test. I needed to get what's called a molecular test before, I think it was 48 or 72. I think it was 48 hours. Maybe it was 72 before my flight leaves, or before I got into Canada, actually, and before my flight left. Anyway, I had to get a molecular test. And at the time, COVID was ramping up pretty bad. Molecular tests were not available. I could only get it at the airport. I did the same thing on the test at the airport. I filled everything I possibly could out online. Sent pictures of my insurance paperwork, absolutely everything I could. Everything. Their systems at the molecular test area at the DIA airport went down. It was completely out. There's a guy that was standing in line there for 13 hours. He could not get in. I stood there in line, and they randomly walked up to people asking what was going on. I showed them my paperwork. They're like, oh, you already filled all this stuff out online. You're good to go. They took me in the back, took my molecular test. 30 minutes later, I had my test results ready to get on the flight. No problem. Everyone else was mad there. They thought I cut the line and everything, which I kind of did, I guess, because they didn't fill the paperwork out online. They didn't do any of the additional work needed. So they're standing there for 13 hours while the systems are down, unable to deal with them. So again, really important. Make sure you fill all that stuff out online as much as you can. I downloaded apps on my phone for Colorado. They have my current driver's license and vaccination reports, all that stuff in there. I made sure all that stuff was documented on record. That's all. There was no mix-ups or anything with the DMV, not the DMV, but the state or anything with the, my driver's license info, my COVID info, all that stuff. So again, spending the time, in your office at home, making sure it's right, will save you 13 hours of waiting in line just for one thing. And those people had to wait 13 hours in line for the COVID test, obviously missed their flight, they had to get another flight. Then when they get into Canada, they have to wait hours again in line, waiting to go through all that stuff, because again, they didn't fill it out online. Like I said, all that stuff, I walked through everything. Walked to the front of the line, everywhere I went, everyone you just see just the lines of people just pissed off. So do your research. The paperwork I showed you for a vehicle that has high mileage, it's over 25 years old. And this vehicle, since it was originally made in the US, it was super easy to get into the US. It was no problem. So we'll see here, DMV today, if I walk out with my plates or not. Hopefully I do. And if I do, then that's awesome. It's another thing I know how to do here. I guess we'll see. All right, just got out of the DMV and boom, got it. So I got lucky this time. I actually got someone in there that knew what they were doing. I'm up on the Union DMV here in Colorado Springs. A lady by the name of Diane. She does all the dealership stuff there, I guess. She was all caught up, and she happened to call my number, and I got lucky, and she was able to help me out. She said I filled everything out right. Everything I showed you is correct. However, when it came to processing a temp tag, she said there's a couple of different ways of doing it if you don't have the actual title in your hands. One is a notarized bill of sale with a copy of that Canadian registration would work. on getting a temp tag. Or if I had the original title signed over that was mailed to me with the bill of sale, whether it needed to be notarized or not is unclear. They could have possibly did it that way too. So there are a couple. In my situation, with the way I purchased the vehicle and everything, I didn't have the title or anything. I only had copies of stuff, and I don't know how you get something notarized through Canada and then mailed back to the US. It just seemed like too much. So the 144-day loophole Texas temp tag seemed like it was still the best option in my case, because I was paying cash for the vehicle. The guy was holding it for me. I was flying in to get it, blah, blah, blah. It's just, you know, probably not the best way to do it, but it's the way. So anyway, that's another way of getting it. And yeah, they said, I guess they need to go through, process all that paperwork I gave them, and they're gonna mail me the title. I guess that's it. They have my info and stuff. If there's any questions, I guess I'll update if anything goes wrong on whether they're going to ship me the title or not. But from what I've seen, the way everything's filled out, I can't imagine I wouldn't see a title in the mail. So I got a surprise in the mail. Boom. There you go. That is how you do it. Pretty crazy.